I still remember the nights and days of my high school and university years. It was half a decade ago, and all the memories I can recall about myself revolve around the fact that I was a clumsy young boy with aspirations to live a better life. Though at that time, I was already lifting weights, discovering my unique skill, and somewhat developing socialization abilities. Looking back, I was still a boy who wore gym clothes everywhere and thought it was appropriate, and I'm still an insecure young boy who perceived myself as inferior to my peers and most importantly, to the young women I was attracted to. Yet I knew there was another version of me waiting. A man who is comfortable in his own skin, dressed impeccably elegant every day, and so charismatic that he always putting others at ease while pursuing his life's purpose, without forgetting to enjoy in the present moment. For many years after that, from 2020 to 2023, I was trapped in a loop of self-sabotage, a tunnel where the silver lining had yet to be found, walking in the abyss day in and day out, trying to find a way to become that new man. An unrecognizable version of myself that drastically contrasted with the fitness junkie who was insecure with himself. At the time, though I exposed to role model I subconsciously aspire to and look up to, like Sean Connery and Roger Moore, both in their James Bond roles, as well as figures like Gregory Peck, I still didn't believe that I belonged to that persona, that style, and that charm, until I discovered a single truth that is highly underrated in the realm of self-improvement. The statement that self-identity is what's keeping you at your current version. Your life right now is not yours. It is a construction of identity shaped by society and external factors. The self-image is changed for better or worse, not by the intellect alone, nor by intellectual knowledge alone, but by experiencing, wittingly or unwittingly. You develop your self-image by your creative experience in the past. You can change it by the same method. Another great quote from one of the most profound books I ever read, Psychocybernetic. When I look back on everything that had happened in my life, from the perception of being a third world born citizen in the middle class, making me feel inferior every time I met people from the Western world, to the idea of financial limitations or character development that wouldn't allow me to fully embrace the life path of a classic gentleman. And it's this exactly quote that made me started to think, wait Patrick, so this is the reason why people with surnames like Agnelli or Arnold seem to have no problem with their financial status or social hierarchy, because they were raised in the upper echelon where finer things in life are normal to them. They were surrounded by like-minded people in elite social cycle. Now, while this might sound like a dead-end idea that gives away all power to luck and external circumstances, what I felt instead was enlightenment. Because for the first time, I was free from a life I never even had to say in. So, gentlemen, here's the harsh truth in all of this. Your identity, the way it was developed, is entirely shaped by the external circumstances you were born into. Because the nature of being a child is that we rapidly learn things at a subconscious to unconscious level. That's the mechanism of human survival. And within human civilization, what could be a more effective way for a child to learn than to replicate, adopt, and believe in the worldview and paradigm of their parents, peers, and external environment? The dilemma here is that even as time passes, even as your brain and mental capabilities develop into adulthood, your psyche remains the same. It means that you are currently living a life you didn't choose, aren't you? This doesn't just apply to physical or verbal guidance from parents regarding education or career, but it applies to worldview and mindset as a whole. In very basic terms, you are not who you truly are. You had no vote, no voice in dictating or choosing the beliefs you adopted when you were young. You had no free will to cultivate your own paradigm of the world. And that, gentlemen, is the most underrated reason why you still haven't become the man you want to be. To do that, you must shift your identity and create a new persona. You must disappear from the world and sculpt your new character, which is exactly what I teach in the narrative shifter, an exact system that has been developed over years, and is fairly available for men who are done with merely seeing their potential but never living up to it. You can find the link in the description. But with that said, before we go into the step-by-step process of becoming unrecognizable, here's a statement I want to open the next section with, that the world doesn't care about you until you demand it. Humans are selfish creatures. We all look for our own benefit above all else. This can be seen everywhere, in every action where humans are involved. The easiest case study is the reason why you choose to click and watch me speaking to the camera this far. It's because you know there's value in this video that will make your quality of life better in one way or another. An additional nature of human is that we don't care much about others unless they create value or benefit our lives in some way, which leads to the idea that nobody can really change you except yourself. At this stage, I bet you know there's potential inside of you, a better version, waiting to be crafted and expressed, yet it remains just that. From my perspective, you are probably like me. We both aspire to finding things in life, to be a greater version of ourselves, from appearance to mastery to greater experiences in various elements. The thing is, life as an ambitious individual is not easy. In fact, it's 10 times harder than the path of mediocrity. Yet, if you want to have it, if you want to experience what it feels like to be a free man, a man who is effortlessly comfortable with himself, moving through the world with elegance and ease, then you must make the change on your own, even though the world hasn't noticed you yet. If you don't like what's being said, change the conversation entirely. Don Francis Draper. From that quote, I might argue that narrative is one of the most dominant forces in human existence. Think of it like this. Everything you perceive, everything you understand, the meaning of it, is all constructed through narrative. If you have heard of the trend old money aesthetic in the past few years, you've probably heard about the brand Loro Piana, one of the most well-known quiet luxury brands today. Now, if you could travel back 50 or even just 20 years ago, nobody cared about Loro Piana, because back then, it was just a fabric manufacturer. But when the gigantic luxury group from France, LVMH, walked in and took 80% share of Loro Piana, they transformed the name into a statement of quiet luxury. Suddenly, it became a symbol of high-quality craftsmanship, understated wealth, and old money tasteful garments. In other words, LVMH shifted the narrative of Loro Piana, a move that some of you might recognize as rebranding in business terms. And I would argue that the idea of crafting a narrative isn't limited to businesses or macro-level agendas, but applies at a very micro-level as well, like the identity of an individual. For example, look at the life of the man who said this quote himself, Don Francis Draper, the charming, sophisticated creative director of Madison Avenue during the golden age of advertising. This main protagonist of Mad Men, he is the icon of cool, the pinnacle of the American dream, the man who seems capable of everything. Good-looking, dressed sharply, tremendously talented at his job, and irresistibly charming to beautiful women. He's the man every character in the series wants to be. But as some of you might know that behind this facade, this man wasn't born into success, and actually, far from it. He was just a poor son of a prostitute whose father was killed in an accident. He suffered child abuse and hated his life. And when the opportunity arrived, when he had nothing to lose, he shifted his narrative, changed the conversation he had with himself, disappeared for years from his old social cycle, and became unrecognizable as a new man. That, gentlemen, is the art of effortless cool behind a man named Don Francis Draper. Again, this all ties back to one key principle. To make the most powerful impression on others, everything must appear effortless. There's an Italian term that some of you might have heard before, Sprezzatura. Many people these days mistakenly believe that this word simply describes the sartorial flair of Italian men, the way they dress, but that's only part of the true meaning. The term Sprezzatura was actually coined by an Italian courtier from the Renaissance era, Baldassare Castiglione. In his book Il Cortegiano, or in English, The Book of the Courtier, what Signore Castiglione wanted to convey with this term was not just about style or clothing, but rather a principle of mastery, the ability to be so capable at something, so deeply competent that you can perform it effortlessly without the need to show off, to learn the know-how of something, to truly understand it until you can command it with ease, no matter how much effort has been put in behind those impressive acts. Gentlemen, if you want to explore more of this idea, I recommend watching this video by Monsieur Hugo Giacome of Sartorial Talks. I'll put the link in the description. But overall, the result of Sprezzatura, when someone is so effortlessly capable in life, is become universally alluring and tempting to others, which is precisely why characters like Don Draper, James Bond, and other iconic male figures are so aspirational. And this is where the art of disappearing comes into play, because it's the only way for you to embark on the path of mastery, to become the new man you want to be, and to truly embody effortless cool. Because this act of disappearing or vanishing enhances one of the most powerful traits that make iconic male figures so alluring, a sense of mystery. Now, the question remains, what kind of man you should become? What narrative should you craft for yourself during this vanishing period to ensure that the new version of you is truly unrecognizable, superior to who you are now? Well, my answer will always be the same: the archetype that we label as a gentleman. A gentleman is a man who pursues excellence in life, both in internal character and external appearance. When you look toward iconic fictional characters in pop culture, or even real-life figures of the 20th century, a trait of confidence without arrogance, strength with kindness, charm with sincerity, and style with substance. Well, how do this sound to you? Unique and distinct from the modern-day landscape of masculinity and society as a whole, don't they? The gentleman is a lost art, and I think it's about time for you to reclaim it. Since the 1960s, society has shifted toward casualness, and in the 2020s, I would argue that it has gone completely out of line. Gentlemen, let me tell you this story. A few weeks ago, I visited Waldorf Astoria in Bangkok for tea, and what I saw there was a young man in gym clothes sitting in a private tea room in Waldorf Astoria. And I mean, half a decade ago, that kind of attire, a sports t-shirt, joggers, and running trainers wouldn't have even been permitted past the hotel front door. And this is just one aspect of modern casualness, because when you look at the character of people today, both men and women, the way they host themselves in public, loud word spilling, a complete lack of awareness toward others, this is what I mean, it's completely out of line. Now, gentlemen, imagine this. When you decide to start cultivating the gentleman archetype in the 2020s, what will happen? What I can confirm is that you will inevitably stand out with ease and elegance. There won't be neediness, because a gentleman does not seek that when he lives his life. There won't be an out-of-touch or old-fashioned ideology, because virtues like elegance are timeless. What will happen instead is a dramatic enhancement in your quality of life, from your daily experiences to the influence you will have on others in society. It is a true noble act, just waiting for you to claim it. And if you're wondering how, allow me to guide you through the 3 process of vanishing and returning as a gentleman in 2025. The first process is to shift your identity. And gentlemen, I won't go into another pitch about my first ever info product, though certainly that is exactly why I created it. But I will give you the core idea behind the narrative shifter, the exact blueprint to changing who you are. And it all starts with the term discomfort, because change never happened without this thing. So the first thing you must do is identify why you cannot effort to stay the same. When it comes to self-improvement or living as a man, logically, almost everyone on earth knows that working out is great for their health, that reading and learning are essential to life, that stepping out of the comfort zone and facing challenges is necessary for growth. But how many people actually execute on this? My guess is that it's less than 20% at least, and the reason? Because they are still comfortable in that situation. Subconsciously, they think that their life right now isn't that bad. And gentlemen, as long as that thought remains ingrained in your mind, you will never change. So, the countermeasure? You must provoke discomfort by creating an anti-vision, a version of your future that you would find it disgusting to live in. Define it: your career, your relationships, your overall quality of life. Let these thoughts flow out of your mind, and then ask yourself, does my current day-to-day life lead me towards this future? If the answer is yes, then you have work to do. By moving into the next step, identifying the root cause of your current reality. Because your current life is not the one you chose, you have been influenced by external factors throughout your life, especially in childhood. Just as we discussed earlier in this video, your self-identity and past experiences dictate your present life. Most of the patterns, habits, and thoughts that you despise yet still repeat, they have a root in your past. Your job here is to navigate these patterns and trace them back to their origin. Let me give you an example. Don Draper from Mad Men. If there was one major mistake this character made, it was that he buried his past and refused to confront it. That's why his marriages and love life failed again and again. Because deep down, he was still the son of a prostitute who didn't believe he deserved love, even though he craved it. Or take the epitome of gentleman icon, Cary Grant. I deeply respect, admire, and aspire to his qualities, but if you study his life, you'll notice one recurring pattern. He failed in marriage 4 times from his young adult years to his senior years. And from the biography I have read, it's clear that his struggles in relationships were rooted in his childhood. From the absence of love and trust, a deep sense of independence, and avoidant attachment style in relationships. And so while he embodied elegant charm and sophistication, his first 4 marriages were far from happily ever after. That's why this process is so important. You need to do whatever it takes to find the root cause and detach from it. Because if you don't, you won't permanently change who you are. Now, if you complete that, we will move to the next stage. Create an ideal persona, the new man you want to become. This is where the idea of if you don't like what's being said, change the conversation entirely becomes reality. Because gentlemen, I believe you probably already have at least a vague idea of the man you want to become. Better charisma, sharper style, more capable in your career, a holder of desirable qualities. And as you know, the archetype I always advocate is a gentleman, a man who pursues excellence in life through both internal character and external appearance. So at this stage, I wouldn't just tell you to create a general idea of the man you want to become. I would tell you to craft the identity of the gentleman you want to become. From the way he dresses, talks, and walks, the way he works, the way he handles life challenges, ask yourself, what would this man do if he were in my position right now? And once you have a clear picture of him, it's time to move on to the next phase, vanishing from the world that no longer serves you. This idea is so tempting and alluring because it increases the sense of mystery in your life while also allowing you to perform Sprezzatura in various aspects of life. From the way you effortlessly dress in classic style to the way you carry yourself in specific situations. Now, what I mean by disappearing from the world that doesn't serve you is to eject yourself from environments and activities that do not align with the idea of the gentleman you have created earlier. If you despise being a social cycle that doesn't serve your ideal, then disappear from it. For example, in my case, it was a social cycle of, some kind of video gamers that I was a part of it for a long time ago, but I decided to quit it entirely. And if you're addicted to social media, yet you know that mindlessly scrolling through someone else's fabricated life is not what you want, then stop using it, or perhaps delete it entirely until you find a great reason to use it again. The core idea is to fade away quietly without saying anything, yet ensure that you yourself are completely certain of why you need to disappear and what action plan will follow. Because gentlemen, nothing is more cinematic and alluring than seeing a man stand by his own standards and act accordingly without insecurity behind it. And now we have moved on to the final phase, vanishing and returning unrecognizable. This final phase will be the longest and toughest, but will ultimately determine whether you change or not. And I call this process as sculpting the gentleman. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. The reason why you must disappear from the world that doesn't serve you before this phase is because you need full focus. And I'm not just talking about productivity-focused discipline, something like relentless time blocking or rigid to-do list, but I'm talking about complete mental focus on your vision and identity. At this phase, after you have completed the narrative shifter, vanish from the world that doesn't serve you, you are about to craft your character in the exact way you envision him. This is where your gentleman vision becomes reality. Right now, you probably already know this man quite well, don't you? The way he dresses, the way he approaches life, the way he interacts with others. Now, act like him every single day. Whenever you're about to put on your clothes, think as if he were you and how he would dress up. Whenever you're about to fall back into your old cycle of self-sabotage, think as if he were you and what he would do instead. And whenever you're about to have a conversation, whether with a companion or a romantic interest, think as if he were you and the charm he would project. Now, here's the truth. You can't just magically act like him and expect desirable outcomes instantly, because the learning curve still exists. So, your primary task at this stage is to enhance yourself to match the gentleman vision you created. If you can't yet pull off the style he dresses in, which I assume is classic style, then level up your Sartorial knowledge. If you don't know where to start, check out my free ebook, the Sartorial Codex, link in the description. If you can't yet pull off the effortless charisma he exudes, then absorb knowledge on social skills from figures like Dale Carnegie and apply them in real life. And if you haven't acquired mastery in a specific field as he should, then start pursuing it, one skill at a time. Now, here's a bonus tip for honing your gentleman character. If you don't know which aspects of development to integrate, here are my personal 5 pillars. The first one is sartorial elegance, the way he presents himself through classic style. Second is charismatic manner, the way he speaks and interacts with charm and ease. Third, multi-mastery pursuit, the way he crafts his expertise beyond a singular field. Fourth, cultural connoisseurship, the way he cultivates his mind and intellectual depth on the world. And fifth, creation for mankind, the way he distributes value to others and makes his life meaningful. I've labeled these as the 5 aspects of a new Renaissance gentleman, which I have turned into a weekly newsletter where I craft a series of ideas breaking down these 5 aspects, which mean you can learn these all at once in my latest issue. You can find a link in the description of this video. With that said, this phase of sculpting yourself will certainly take time, depending on how far you have envisioned your gentleman character. For me, it might take my whole life, and I don't even know if I ever fully fulfill the vision. But the return on investment in all of this, gentlemen, by vanishing from the world that doesn't serve you, by sculpting your character every single day, what will happen is this: the people around you will gradually notice. They will sense that something has changed within you, even if you only just begun the journey. And over time, as long as you continue to craft your gentleman persona and pursue excellence in life, you will turn out to be unrecognizable compared to the man you once were. And that, gentleman, is perhaps the most noble and satisfying feeling in human experience, to able to control your own narrative and to change who you are entirely by your own free will. So gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this far. And for those of you who have been waiting for it, here's what I'm wearing today. Since Bangkok right now is extremely hot, I decided to skip the layers and go with lightweight cotton ivory knit polo, my only top piece for today. For trousers, it's medium grey wool high-waisted single reverse pleat trousers with side adjuster and a cuff hem, cut in modern sartorial fit. For footwear, it's dark brown calfskin penny loafers, worn with no-show socks. Simple yet perfect for both day and night in Bangkok, where the real summer has now fully arrived. For the full breakdown, check out my Sartorial Elegance section in this Tuesday newsletter. Gentlemen, apart from that, I hope you have a wonderful day ahead, and I'll see you in the next one.